And hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I thought it'd be interesting to try something new, so we're gonna do kind of a commentary style video. Let me know what you guys think below, and we'll see if this sort of style fits me. If not, then this will probably be a one-time thing. But I wanted to kind of take something that I had a strong opinion about and kind of sit down and talk and see what came out of it. So that's what we're gonna do with this. So I kind of wanted to talk about the differences in specifically kind of more the superhero end of cinema between like early 2000 movies and modern movies, and the main difference in social interactions and what kind of modern movies are missing that the older movies had, but they lost along the way. And my main example is going to be kind of the newer Marvel stuff versus old Spider-Man. So that would be Sony Entertainment. And I feel like there's a couple factors that have been heavily missed out on in newer cinema. Specifically, like in the old Spider-Man movies, you had lots of scenes where you would have stuff like that just kind of didn't really have all that much importance to the story overall, but would still include those social interactions between characters. And sometimes they'd feel really awkward and out of place, but they were important for the story. Like, for example, in Spider-Man, the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, there's a scene partway through where um Mr. Osborn offers Peter Parker the to find him a job, right? And to help him get a job. And Peter Parker refuses, and there's never anything else that really comes of it. It's not a super important interaction as far as movie interactions go. It just kind of happens. It helps establish the characters and the relationships they have with each other without having any importance in the storyline, which I feel like is something that's really heavily missed in more modern interactions in movies like, say, Endgame. And Endgames is a difficult example because there's so many people that you can't dedicate a ton of time to the interactions between just a couple of them. But even more broadly, in a lot of the newer Marvels movies, there's not a lot of scenes, so to speak of, that are just kind of interactions that are there for the sake of being interactions with nothing deeper behind it. Like, the specific Spider-Man instance that I pointed to, if it happened in a newer movie, there would likely be a callback to it later on. Like when he's fighting Green Goblin, there would be a callback to him refusing to take his job and how that caused problems with their relationship and blah blah blah. But instead there's no callback to it, and it's left as a relationship kind of build up that builds upon the relationship without having a large impact on the story. And there were a lot more of those in kind of the older movies that were just kind of like moments that were there for no other reason than establishing who the characters are and you know how they interact with each other, what they think, and knowing that Parker's that sort of person, comes into play only in the fact that it sheds light on the decisions he makes because you understand his morals better and where he's willing to draw the line for certain stuff. And it doesn't have any specific callback like when he refused to get together with MJ at the end of the movie. In newer films, there's a tendency when stuff like that happens to specifically call out, like, because this series of events happened previously, Parker wasn't willing to take the risk. Instead, they kind of let it be and kind of go with, hey, this is the decision Parker made, and if it makes sense based off of his character and all that. And I feel like that does a lot to help kind of his character development and his story arc as a whole, in the fact that you don't have to have every little character position pointed out for you and stuff like that. Instead, you get it via seeing the interactions with the characters, and you can kind of figure out why that they act the way they do based off of that. And maybe, there's something to be said for hey, if you call out the specifics, then it helps understand for people that didn't follow the movie as well. And maybe you could make a case with that, saying that, hey, for the sake of the people that don't follow the character development as well, specifically younger people, because that is most of the where the superhero audience goes towards, especially, in the case of Marvel, at least historically, is slightly younger audiences, not super young anymore. Like, there's a level of seriousness that they like to put in the movies now, which makes it harder for younger audiences sometimes, but the general audience is still a younger audience. So I guess you can make the case that you want to keep things simple for the younger audiences, but it just feels like, I think the best way I can put this is relationships are a series of ups, downs, but also a lot of just kind of in between. Like, I don't remember where I heard this, but I'm sure most people have heard this at least once, that the people that you're most comfortable around aren't the ones that you can sit and talk with for a long period of time. It's the people that you can be in silence around and still comfortably enjoy time with them, rather than having to be talking at all times to be comfortable around somebody. So there's kind of a lot of those in between moments where it's like nothing important happened for your relationship that is going to change everything about your relationship, but you still spent the time together. Like, if you think of your best friend, the stuff that specifically comes to mind might be a specific key moments in your relationship. But what really makes your relationship is spending a lot of time together out of just important events. And to, just spend time together for the sake of spending time together without the need for it to always have some deep meaning behind it. And older movies understood that better. There was more moments in older movies that were kind of that in between. And it can be boring, more boring at times because you don't have something going on every moment that you're watching it. So for somebody with a shorter attention span, it might be more difficult to watch a movie that's, slower. But having those less ambitious events involved in really, in my opinion, helps out the movie. And one thing that's happened is the movie producers have gotten accused of padding out the time with those and, using insane amounts of filler events and stuff like that, which people don't like. So you have to find some sort of balance. But I feel like, at least in this sense, the older movies 100% have kind of the newer films beat, in the sense that there was it was more genuine, and it felt like it was always understandable. Well, not always, but it felt like, when it was understandable what a character did, it wasn't because it was described well. It's because it was shown well by the actions of the character in previous circumstances. In the way they acted, the way they talked, the way they interacted with each other, instead of having a specific callback to the reasoning behind the action of every character. And maybe it's just me being overly critical of newer films. And I've been accused by, people that I watched films with before of being overly critical of stuff that, there isn't that much need to be overly critical of. And the only films I've watched recently are superhero movies. And that's why I used the Spider-Man movie as an example, because, part of what got me thinking on this was I rewatched Endgame with Riptide and Nightmare, and then we went back and watched the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And I really enjoyed the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and despite the fact I'd seen it before, and Endgame just really felt kind of dull to me in comparison. So, that got me thinking, what's so different about it that these two movies that, granted, it's been a longer time since I've seen the first Spider-Man compared to Endgame, but what's the key factors here that it feels like Endgame's missing that this old Spider-Man movie feels like it has? So, once again, maybe I'm being overly critical of Endgame. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'd be quite curious to hear. What do you guys think? Were old movies better at portraying what characters thought and giving more kind of downtime moments rather than filling the movie with only important events in the name of keeping us engaged? Or are newer movies perfectly fine and, it's just a matter of me being overly critical here? I don't know. I'm very curious to see what the comment section thinks. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Also, let me know if you enjoyed this style of video with kind of the commentary talk rather than just focusing on the gameplay. Is it better, worse? Is it, am I kind of out of my league in this sense? Obviously, it's my first time trying a commentary style video, so lots of stuff like that. But yeah, let me know what you think. If you think I should try to do more of these. If you do, let me know topics that you think would be fun to hear me cover. And hey, maybe this will completely flop and I'll never do another one of these. Anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And I'll see you all in the next one. God bless. Bye-bye.